In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into the controversial remarks made by former President Donald Trump regarding Ukraine and its president, Volodymyr Zelensky. The discussion centers around Trump's criticism of Zelensky, the ongoing war in Ukraine, and the implications of U.S. foreign policy in the region. Shapiro begins by outlining the background of the Ukraine war, emphasizing that Russia's invasion in February 2022 was unprovoked and aimed at overthrowing the Ukrainian government. He notes that Ukraine has managed to resist Russian advances, leading to a stalemate in the conflict. Despite the efforts of the Biden administration and European allies to support Ukraine, the front lines have remained largely unchanged since the summer of 2022. Shapiro argues that any potential settlement would likely involve Russia retaining control over the Donbas region and Crimea, while Ukraine would need significant security guarantees to prevent future aggression. Trump's recent proposals for Ukraine have raised eyebrows, particularly his suggestion that Ukraine should repay the U.S. for military aid. Shapiro discusses a leaked report indicating that Trump proposed a deal requiring Ukraine to share a substantial portion of its natural resource revenues with the U.S. This proposal was met with resistance from Zelensky, who found the terms excessively burdensome. Shapiro highlights the irony that while Trump claims to support Ukraine, his demands could undermine its economic stability. The podcast also explores the personal animosity between Trump and Zelensky, which dates back to Trump's presidency. Shapiro recounts how Zelensky's alignment with President Biden and his attempts to strengthen ties with the Democratic Party have irked Trump. Recently, Trump made disparaging remarks about Zelensky, labeling him a modestly successful comedian and blaming him for the war. Shapiro points out that these statements are factually incorrect, as it was Russia that initiated the conflict. Shapiro notes that Trump's comments have sparked backlash not only from Democrats, but also from Zelensky's political opponents in Ukraine. Many Ukrainian politicians have rallied around Zelensky, defending him against Trump's accusations and emphasizing Ukraine's sovereignty. Shapiro argues that Trump's attacks may inadvertently strengthen Zelensky's position domestically as they unify various factions against perceived external threats. A significant aspect of the discussion revolves around the responsibility of European nations in supporting Ukraine. Shapiro agrees with Trump that Europe needs to step up its financial and military contributions, as the U.S. has shouldered a disproportionate burden in the conflict. He criticizes the Biden administration for its lack of effective leadership in rallying European allies to take a more active role in supporting Ukraine. Shapiro transitions to the topic of U.S. defense spending under the Trump administration, highlighting a recent proposal to cut the defense budget by 8% over the next 5 years. He expresses concern that such cuts could undermine U.S. military readiness, especially in the face of rising threats from China and Russia. Shapiro emphasizes the importance of maintaining a strong military presence globally to deter aggression and protect American interests. As the podcast concludes, Shapiro reflects on the broader implications of Trump's foreign policy approach. He suggests that while Trump may be attempting to negotiate a resolution to the Ukraine conflict, his rhetoric could alienate key allies and undermine the moral stance of the U.S. in the international arena. Shapiro warns against adopting a neo-isolationist stance, arguing that the U.S. must remain engaged in global affairs to prevent adversaries from filling the power vacuum.